Hello, my name is Dr. David Edward-Ooi Poon, founder of the Faces of Advocacy. Today we have a very special guest. We have MP Ken Hardie here as our first Liberal MP on the Faces of Advocacy champion interviews. Remember, we are not asking for open borders. We are just asking to be together. So thank you so much, MP Hardie, for being here and for taking the time to talk to us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Our first question is, why is family reunification important to the Canadians and the people of Fleetwood, Port Kellis?
Well, Fleetwood Port Kells is kind of like a mini Canada. We have a very, very large South Asian population. A lot of Asian folks live there, a large number of Filipinos as well. So there's tremendous diversity there. And of course, being right on the Pacific Rim, there are family ties that go back and forth across the ocean and back and forth across borders. At any time, pandemics aside, there's a constant stream of activities through our constituency office to help bring families together, be it relatives who want to visit or spouses that want to, get their permanent resident status. So this is not new territory for us, but of course the pandemic has made things particularly interesting.
I adore Filipino food. My partner is Filipina, and I love getting some lumpia, just delicious. So what makes you take the stand today for voting Canadians and families for family reunification?
Well, I think that, family reunification is obviously important. That's what families are all about. Families are not meant to be, separated by oceans and time zones and borders and things like that. So I think that the real art to what we're trying to accomplish here is to get people together, but do it in a way that gives all other Canadians confidence that we are still managing the imperatives of the pandemic. So, sometimes that means that we have to be fairly precise as to what we mean by a family. I can mention one young fellow from Hong Kong who is gay, and he wants to bring, his fiance, his partner, to Canada. At this point, that would not necessarily count as a family per se. I mean, his feelings, his need to be with his partner are absolutely genuine, and heartfelt. But we have, this isn't an on-off switch. You're a family, you're a partnership, or you're not. There's shades of gray all across the piece, and coming up with something that is fair, evenly kind of administered and clear to people is a bit of a challenge.
It means a great deal, at the very least, to hear your compassion, because it's something that we want to hear. And so on the topic of precision, how do you see family reunification occurring safely in Canada?
Well, I think that, first of all, we do have to be very clear as to what constitutes members of a family who could come. Certainly spouses, obviously. Parents, well, maybe not. But then, when we get down to, adult brothers and sisters or aunts and uncles and cousins, et cetera, I mean, the farther out you go from the household, the less likely I think we should be defining those people as family for purposes of what we're talking about here.
So then I'm hoping that in your words, you can tell the people watching, what have you done? What are you currently doing to help bring your constituents and Canadians together safely?
Well, of course, what we have done is what we actually do on a daily basis. Again, because our office is one of the busiest in Canada when it comes to things like everything from visitors visas to permanent residency, citizenship, etc. We're continuing that work, but aware of the fact that the pandemic has really caused great disruptions on all sides of this issue. There are a lot of people in Ottawa or in some of the various offices that would normally be dealing with these files. And they've now been scooped off to do other things. They may be answering telephones for the Canada Emergency Business Account or something like that, because our primary focus is on Canadians in Canada who need support. That's our first priority, and it has to be. At the same time, so while we've seen certain government resources redirected to providing that pandemic support. We also, of course, have the issue with the other countries. India is a perfect example for us because we have so many citizens of India wanting to go back and forth. But India itself is in terrible shape right now. You know, if they're not locked down totally, they will be very soon at the rate, you know, the number of infections continues to rise. And particularly for things like spousal applications, you know, there is a fairly detailed, lengthy process that people have to go through, including criminality and security checks. And even at the best of times when, you know, we have all of our systems up and running, if we have, say, somebody who's been in the military or a police service in India, Pakistan, the Middle East, etc., the security apparatus is slow at the best of times because we rely on the other country to help us determine, you know, what that person's background is, what they did, were they members of organizations, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to have a very vivid imagination to see that there can be a lot of flags that could come up. But you add the pandemic, and you have a situation where those functions that we need, the complementary services in the other country, are simply not available to us. And in that situation, of course, everything comes to a halt. So that's one of the things that we've been trying to work through. Now, you've asked me what I've done. What I've done is I've initiated conversations with a number of different ministers to see if, at the very least, we could set up some kind of a visitor's visa where, you know, I mean, we have one couple, they've been married for 15 years. He's in Jordan, she's in Surrey in BC. There shouldn't be much of a doubt that they're married. So, you know, there's no issue there of a fake marriage. If we don't have any red flags showing right now, then my argument is, well, at least let them come and visit. You know, absolutely all the protocols, make sure that, you know, they're COVID-free before they get on an airplane, they're COVID-free when they land, they're quarantined, all of that stuff, but not necessarily just lower the iron curtain, if you will, and say, well, no, that they can't come. So this is an argument that I'm putting forward. You know, I can't say that I've got the solution at hand, but they know where I'm coming from. And I have, I think, many other MPs feeling about the same.
It means a lot to hear your explanation to help us understand, because many of us have felt unheard. So to hear that discussion is important, particularly you giving very good examples. In regards to the separation in general during such a difficult time, how do you feel that family separation has affected mental health?
Well, it depends. I mean, some people are very, very strong, you know, mentally and emotionally, and they make do. I would say the vast majority of people are. But it's particularly acute, I found, when there's children involved and the children are with one parent and the other parent isn't there to support them. That does create a lot of difficulties, and especially in some communities, between the father and the mother, they have kind of different power status. So for instance, in the South Asian community, you know, mom can control things at home pretty well, but it takes a dad there to make sure that the sons and the daughters, especially the sons, are towing the line in the community itself. There's a lot of risks and perils out there. And so, you know, the absence of having the two parents together can make for a very stressful time for the parent who's got the kids, as well as the parent who's worried about what the kids are up to.
Those kind of separations, it means a lot to hear that you're aware of them, because we would like some forward movement with them. And so the final question, so you've touched on this constituent of yours from Hong Kong, and he wants his partner over. What message do you have for the families who are feeling alone, who are feeling unsupported, who are feeling that there's no end to all of this? What message do you have for them when they are worried about being kept apart by the current travel restrictions?
Well, I think, you know, to be honest with you, the key thing, the thing that will bring about the greatest return to normal is the degree to which we in Canada keep this pandemic under control. You know, right now we're seeing a resurgence in infections. More people are being diagnosed. We see, you know, the hospitals starting to fill up. if that continues to happen, then government resources are going to be committed to dealing with that, to deal with the immediate health and security and safety of Canadians. If we don't have to do that, then we can start freeing up some of these people who might not be doing the work that they regularly do. And they can go back into IRCC or to public safety or some of the other agencies which are deeply involved in ordinary times on making sure that families come back together. So that's the first thing we can do, is make sure that we're doing our part to maintain this. The second thing, of course, is to use Zoom, use the things that are at our disposal, at least to stay in touch with people. It's difficult. India is a perfect example of a place where internet is pretty dodgy at the best of times. So it's very necessary for people who might be stranded in India wanting to come here to make sure, for instance, that they stay in touch with the local Canadian consulates, that they're registered with Global Affairs. The situation in some respects as far as travel back and forth is being alleviated. We hope, for instance, that just as Canada is under some pressure from families to permit visitations, etc., that India, for example, does exactly the same. Because just as the one spouse can't come from India to Canada right now, the spouse in Canada can't go to India either. So, again, it's in many cases, it's a bilateral issue that needs to be sorted out. Fortunately, in Canada, we're a lot farther down the road in terms of our ability to manage the pandemic, even though we are challenged right now. We will, in many cases, have to be patient if the other country is still having a difficult time.
I understand. And hopefully the days of Zoom calls will be put behind us soon enough when we have better control. I want to thank you very much from the bottom of my heart on behalf of both myself and the organization. And now I ask anyone watching, those who feel disenfranchised, forgotten, alone, please join us in the campaign at facesofadvocacy.com. We also have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and now YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. Find us at Faces of Advocacy. We are not asking for open borders. We are just asking to be together. Please send your thanks to MP Ken Hardie, and see you guys later in 3, 2, 1.